work together on various projects.
And that'll all get confused. Yeah.
I'll let you go
No
ahead and
worries.
focus.
Thank you, Marceletta. Well, as Marceletta explained, I'm Janelle Hill. I am the Community Services Coordinator at Arbor Circle. Arbor Circle is a social services agency here in town. Is anyone familiar with that? Heard about it? Okay. Then I am going to actually start by giving a little bit of an overview, because today's discussion is really about how we utilize written skills in our day-to-day work. So the history of the organization, Arbor Circle has been around just since 1996. It is only located in the Kent County area, and it was a merger of existing organizations. So the Child Guidance Clinic, the Advisory Center for Teens, the Mercy Respite Center, 5 community organizations came together and did a merger in order to share resources and collaborate more effectively. So that merger occurred in 1996, and Arbor Circle has been working in our community since that point. Our population served, I'm specifically speaking about our homeless youth services program today. That's the agency that I've worked with the longest amount of time. I've been at the agency for 12 years, and I've served as a case manager, and I now am the community services coordinator there. So I do some supervision and coordination with the community. But most of what I talk about today is going to reflect that really specific population. And our homeless youth services youth are 16 to 20-year-olds who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. They're working toward independent living, and so we do a lot of case management. We also offer counseling support, tutoring, some other educational assistance in the form of life skills groups, and some employment preparation programs. But the overall goal is to help them maintain or obtain safe and stable housing, and we understand that that takes a lot of other factors in place in order to have that. So employment, education, sometimes parenting skills or legal issues we assist with as well. Our program requirements, the reason I put that up there, I'll mention that a little bit as we go through. One of the reasons that documentation and writing skills are so important in the social work arena is that we have a lot of program requirements. Some of them are funding sources. We're a diversified funding program, or diversified funding sources support our programs. So we have some local resources through grants or United Way, our community foundations. We have state funding, we have federal funding, and every one of them has their own standards. So we have to do reporting to each of them. Some of them are on different cycles too. So we have reports that happen in July, and some that happen in September, and some that happen in January. So we really have to keep track of the activities that we do, and sometimes they're asking for different things. Some people really want to know the numbers of the youth we serve. Others really want to know stories. Some come and do audits, so they're reviewing our case files, so they really look through them one by one. Others are more general, so they might be looking at one case file and judging the entire program based on that one file. Or they might be interviewing the youth that we work with and not even really reviewing the written documentation. So they're going to look at the client care aspects. So we have a lot of accountability in our program, and we have a lot of stakeholders. Our primary stakeholder is the youth that we're serving, but then we're also accountable to our funding sources, to the colleagues that are working within the agency, and to the broader community. Looking at the services offered, I kind of touched on that a little bit, that the youth are coming in and receiving case management services. So that is helping them with education goals, accessing community resources. I have a little bit of this outlined in a further slide, but really assisting them with setting their own goals and then achieving those goals. So it's a really independent program, and it's really focused on the youth-centric. I mentioned our funding sources, and then the staff overview. Our staff don't just consist of the case managers. We also have interns, tutors, a supervision team, and then the therapy and counseling team that works with the youth as well. And then the broader agency has HR people and those people that do our data entry and all the logistical stuff that helps an agency run day to day. But the people I focus on really throughout this presentation is within our core staff of the homeless youth services. Any questions about the agency or the population? Okay, feel free to raise your hand if you have anything that comes up throughout. The aspects of our case management. We work with the youth to teach them goal setting. We assist the youth in accessing community resources, so existing community resources or partner agencies. Coordinating with those other agencies, sometimes we have to advocate to help them receive resources, or sometimes we're just helping to sort things out when there's a lot going on. That especially happens in legal cases. Working as the case management team. So I outline that case manager, the intern, the tutor, supervisors, therapists. Those are the people that primarily would be doing the documentation that we'll be speaking about. And then documentation equals communication. I say that because we are a really fast-paced organization. We work with up to 75 youth, and we are day-to-day. We have calls starting the moment we walk in the door to the moment we're leaving. And so a lot of times the staff themselves are passing as we're on our way to help another youth. We do have staff meetings once a week where we talk about the youth's needs and try to coordinate that way, but the documentation really assists with that. And it mostly takes place in our progress notes and our case file. But more and more, we're actually using email as a communication as well. And that tends to be mostly just internal. We actually have a lot of restrictions as far as being able to use email communication outside the agency, as far as confidentiality and that. So it's mostly an internal tool, but we use a lot of emails to just say, hey, I touched base with this youth, and these are the goals we're working on. But if we're just not there to talk to each other enough, or to have the time to coordinate with each person that's a stakeholder. So it's kind of up to them if they're talking to a youth on the phone or if they have an appointment with a youth to go to that case file and see where we're at, what the goals that the youth is working on, what the last contact was about, and try to make sure that we're meeting the needs as best we can. So the key written components, basically the way I've laid this out is to just go over the 5 main areas that we use written communication or written documentation in. And I'll explore them a little bit, give a chance to ask questions, and just sort of share the various components that go into each of them. So the integrated assessment. The purpose of the integrated assessment, this is what would happen. We actually have an intake coordinator that meets with all the youth that come in. And she asks a whole list of questions to try and find out what's going on with them, why they feel they need our services, and what the main goals are at the moment that we can really help with. So she's using oral communication, of course, to engage the youth and to really get those questions answered. But she has to write those down in an integrated assessment that the follow-up staff can work with, so whoever the case manager assigned is going to read that assessment. The licensors might be reading it to make sure that we're working with youth that actually qualify. That goes back to that eligibility piece. So assessing the youth's eligibility for the program. Some of the basics, they have to be 16 to 20 years old. That's pretty easy to document. We can get a copy of a birth certificate. But they have to show that they're homeless or at risk of homelessness. If we have a conversation with, if maybe they're at home still, but when they turn 18, they're going to get kicked out. We have to document any conversation that we have with the parent or the current landlord to show why they need our service. As I mentioned before, we're only able to serve up to 75 youth, and we often have a waiting list. So there's a lot of people in need, and although there's probably needs all over that we wish we could help more with, we want to make sure that the youth that we're choosing to be that 75 at a time are the youth that are most in need, and that they're people that really do meet our requirements. And that also is something that if a licensor came through and audited a file and said, oh, well, they already have their own apartment, or doesn't look like mom's telling them to leave at all, why are you still working with this youth? We could really get cited and lose some funding there. Gauging the current needs of the youth. So that's a way that we're really helping to sort out what's going on and really prioritize. Sometimes they struggle with prioritizing for themselves, so by finding out what all the needs are, we can help sort that out for them a little bit and then let them know what resources we can offer. And then introducing the program to the youth. That's going to happen a little bit more just in the conversation and the assessment itself versus the written documentation, but that's one of the purposes of that assessment period. And then the same thing with engaging the youth in services, letting them know what we can do and why we feel we can help them, and giving them a chance to actually choose the program. Then this just says that this document paints the picture of the youth for those who are not in the assessment. And that concept is something that I use with most of our communications, that when you're writing documentation up, whether it's for a coordinating service or the tutor or your colleagues, if you're documenting it to be the eyes and the ears for them. They're the people that can't be there at the time, so you're trying to capture the essence of what happened in that interaction. We look at the service plan. The service plan empowers the youth. This helps to break down that overwhelming feeling. So a youth might come in, for example, and be struggling with their housing. Maybe they are unemployed and not sure how to obtain housing because they don't have an income. It could be that they are struggling with some legal issues. So they just have a lot going on and they come in really overwhelmed. So the goal plan, service plan is really our tool to help sort all of that out. It sets out a plan for them, and then it really helps us to let them know what we can do for them. When they come in searching for a job, we can say, okay, well, where are you at? Have you had a job before, and you just have struggled to keep it because of transportation or childcare? Or have you never had a job and you're not even sure how to fill out an application or how to track the skills that you have? Do we need to practice interview skills? So it really helps to find out what the need is, more than just saying, my goal is to get a job. Okay, well, what does that mean, and what do you need to do for that to happen? It also outlines the roles of the case management team. So by putting goals together, we can then say, okay, well, who needs to help you with this? If you're developing a resume, maybe you're going to work with our tutors to help develop that. Or if you're practicing interview skills, you're going to come to our job hunting groups and work on that. So it helps us to know what our role is, and then it also helps to define what the role for the youth is, to really give some of that accountability and to sort out what the youth needs to do as well. And then providing that outcome measurement tool. When we talk about the funding sources and writing for grants, they want to see outcomes. They want to see that what we're doing is effective. And so from the start, we can't just say after the fact, oh, we had all these great outcomes. Well, how do we know that that happened because of what you did with them? So we really have to start measuring that from the day they enter the program. Here are the goals that they had. Here's what we did to help them with those goals. And this shows at the end where those outcomes are. So it really provides that tool throughout. And then this one just says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. So it just kind of helps to capture why goal setting is important. I did bring today a little worksheet. It's actually a sample of the goal plan that we actually use. Oops, that's the back side of it. Oh, thank you. Can we give half? So it's our service plan. And the one we have is two-sided. We're really just going to look at that front part. But we have a tool that we use right when they first come in, and then it's reviewed on an ongoing basis. So for some youth, they might be achieving these goals really quickly, and we base it on that. So we're saying, okay, well, great, you got that goal. Now we're going to go on to the next one. Do you need more, Marcella? Okay. What do you need to do? There's one row here in the middle. Thank you. So I actually want to just do a quick little practice with that to engage. So when we think of goals, what kinds of goals do you guys have for yourselves right now? I'm going to write some of them down. So no pressure. Shout out. What's a goal? It can be a wish. It can be something you're actively working on, something you feel you might need to work on. Completing education. Okay. What else? Is that everyone's goal? It might be everyone's goal, but you probably have other things that you're doing at the same time. Any employment-related goals, housing-related goals? Yeah, shout it out. Certified nursing aide, okay. Anyone else? Could even be fun stuff, yep. Good grades, that's good. Getting ahead of myself. What about fun stuff? One of my goals, I want to go to Alaska. Learn how to fence. All right. What else? What else? Yep. Become a millionaire. Love it. That's great. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you. This gives some good examples because we get a variety of goals. Some of the youth will come in and they might say, yeah, I know I'm homeless right now, but I'm not going to be because I'm going to be in the NBA next year. We're like, that's a great goal. What are you doing right now to work on that? What do you mean? Are you on a basketball team? No. Okay, well, that might be a far-fetched goal if you're not even on a basketball team to then say, in a year, I'm going to be in the NBA. It can be a great goal, and we're not going to say, nope, you shouldn't have that as a goal, but we should say, that might not be the goal that you should be working on to get housing. So what I want you guys to do is just a quick little exercise, even if you didn't shout something out. Pick something that you want to do as a goal, and write that on the heading of, should be the sheet where it just says what that overall goal is. So it'll say goal, and then the action steps are underneath, but we're just going to identify the goal to start with. Okay, looks like people seem to have something. So I'm going to move into the SMART approach. Has anyone heard the SMART approach before for setting goals? It's pretty common in the business arena that when you're doing goal setting, whether it's personal or professional, that you should use these concepts, that the goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time specific. And that's a technique that we really try to work on with the youth. And although it's not specific to writing skills, we do it as a written plan because we feel that that's really effective for the youth. Some of these youth have never set formal goals for themselves before, and by going through the process, we always give them a copy of what they set so that there's some accountability there. Some of them put it on their fridge and really follow it. Others, we see it in the trash can right as they're leaving. So not everybody follows it or cares to have it in a tangible way. They might say, of course I know what that goal is. I need housing. That's my goal. I'm not going to forget that. But by putting it in writing, it helps go through that process, and it really helps to sort that out. So when we look at those specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-specific, for example, I talked about job hunting. A youth might have a goal to get a job, and that might have different action steps for different youth. We would have a youth that would come in, maybe I mentioned it before, that they have a lot of job experience, but they've never been able to keep a job really well. So that simple little tool where we break down action steps is going to lead to a conversation. And sometimes it's easier to have a conversation like that when there's a tool to go by because we're just really trying to get at those steps versus being judgmental about it. So we're going to say, okay, well, what's been your barrier? What's been holding you back from keeping your job? And then they're going to share that it might be childcare, or it might be transportation, or it could be a legal history. And depending on what that answer is, that then helps us determine the next action steps. So we might say, okay, so you've got some legal issues going on. We're going to have to explore certain programs that would help to erase criminal history. Or maybe we're going to apply only to certain jobs that are what they call felony-friendly employment. We might also help to get them involved in community service opportunities so that they can ramp up their resume while they're working on the job hunting process. For someone else that doesn't have job skills, that's going to help us to determine what we need to do to help them get there. Okay, well, you might need to do those interview skills. You might need to practice filling out a resume. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm job hunting every day. I'm out there all the time. Okay, great. And then they fill out an application and something simple like they don't have a phone. So they're filling out all these applications and there's not a phone for them to be contacted on. That's really wasting their time. But they might think they're doing the right thing. They're just doing what they've been told to do. and having somebody there to process that with, we can point out those things because then we can see it in writing. So then the goal is still going to be get a job, but that action step, before we say fill out 10 more applications, we're going to say, let's get a phone first. And maybe our program is going to help with the funding of that, or maybe we'll apply for one of the, a free phone system, but something where we can help to identify what those gaps are too. And by putting it in writing, we can then rearrange it. And sometimes we have 5, 6 different drafts with a particular youth to get there. So I want you to take a moment, humor me, and look at your goal, and then determine some action steps that you feel meet these requirements. And looking at some of these samples, becoming a CNA might be really specific. Becoming a millionaire, that might not be as specific. You might have to define that and say, I want to become a millionaire by owning my own business that sells this type of product. So you might have to become a little bit more specific in the end goal to then determine what those action steps are. So take a few moments and work on that. Seeing some pens stop, maybe take like 30 seconds more if you're working on it. All right. Is anyone willing to share their goal? Steps? If not, we'll process through one of these. So this one comes to mind. Get good grades. What might we need to do in order to make that a goal and then break down some action steps? First off, would we keep the goal as get good grades? Is that a specific goal? What does get good grades mean to you? Some people, a 2.0 might be good grades because that means I'm passing my classes. Other people, it might be I need a 3.2 in order to keep my scholarship. For somebody else, it might be if I'm not getting all A's, that's not good grades to me. So it could be the same goal for 5 different people, but what that actually looks like is going to be different. So one of the things that we would do is actually identify that. So it might be I'm going to get a 3.2 average, and that's my goal. What would be some action steps in that case? What might you need to do in order to achieve that goal? Go to classes. Perfect. So You might say as one of your action steps, I'm going to go to class every day. And if you were a client of ours, we would probably ask for a copy of your schedule and then help to hold you accountable by that. So we might say, okay, well, let's look at the schedule. What time do you need to get your transportation arranged in order to get there every day? Most of the youth we work with use the bus system. So depending on where they're staying at the time, we might have to walk them through that and say, okay, let's practice this before classes even start. We're going to do the bus together, and we're going to see exactly what time you're going to get there and how long does it take to get to class. So that would be something that we could do to help you physically get to class every day. But then it's on them to emotionally get there and be prepared for class every day. What else might you need to do to get those good grades? Study, all right, studying. So we do work a lot with study skills with our youth. There are people that have a lot of distractions, don't have a lot of consistency in their lives, so we have tutors that are in our program every day. Several of our students are here at CC, and we help them get connected with the Academic Achievement Center on campus so that they can work with the tutors here and work with the staff here to help just prepare for class, but then also to learn some study skills. Test taking is another thing that people struggle with. So learning how to take a test, what are some tips? What do they need to do to be prepared for class? So that would be a good one. Anything else? So we've got going to class, studying. What about the work that you have to do for your class? Just going to class isn't enough. So homework, okay. So doing your homework, doing papers, that might be something that you work on with the tutor as well, but helping them to have that. We also help with some tangible things. So that might be identifying needs. You know, can they afford their books? If not, what can we do to help them access resources? Getting used books or arranging to borrow books, having those kinds of things in line to try and break down some of the barriers. So by going through this process, if we had just said to a youth, okay, their goal is to get good grades, that's great, they know what that means, and we'll just put that as the goal, and then we'll check in next week or next month and see how they're doing. We really have to write it out for them and write it out with them and then find out what they feel they need the help with. Some of them might be like, no, I'm really great at tests, but my barrier is transportation. Others might be, I can get to class every day, but I never do any homework, so I'm not going to get good grades if I'm not participating. So like I said before, a lot of people might have the same goal, like housing or employment, but there's a lot of different action steps to get there. And writing it down using these guidelines and having it in a way that's really accountable helps to get toward that process. And that could apply for really any of those. Some of them are really learning how to fence. That might be as simple an action step as signing up for a class and then attending that class. Becoming a millionaire is going to have a lot more action steps to get closer. And we do that. Sometimes we have to help a youth break that down. We have youth that come in and they say, okay, I want a car. Okay, that's great, but you don't have a job yet, and you are kind of worried about where you're staying. Maybe, it's still ultimately their choices, but maybe we need to work on these other things before that's realistic. And maybe the getting a car, getting a job is the action step that's going to get them closer to that. So for other people, getting the job is the end itself, but for somebody that wants a car, getting a job is just the means to the end. So that's another way to help process that with them, that what is your end goal in mind? Some people want a job so they have a place to sleep at night. Others just want the job so they can buy a car or get clothes or whatever it is they want. So by going through that process, it also helps to identify some of those motivations. So any questions or thoughts on that? All right. So the next step, this is really where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, is on the progress notes. This is where the title, came from. This is something that was repeated to me again and again in social work classes. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Because social work especially, the concept of social work in general is to help the community, to help individuals, to work on a cause or a social action and help to make a difference in the community. And as individuals, we might just feel really good when we see outcomes happen or knowing that we helped somebody. I'm helping somebody every day in some way or another, big or small, and it does feel really good. But as far as to our stakeholders, if it's not written down and documented, it doesn't matter. Maybe that youth is happy with me that day, but our funders aren't going to be happy with that. The community that supports our programs isn't going to be happy. My boss isn't going to be happy with that. So we really need to track the good work that we're doing, and our documentation is key to that. When you're looking at, we talked a little bit about some of the courses that you guys are in. Somebody that's maybe a writing major isn't necessarily going to go into social work as the profession. They're going to have some of that social work background as well. But anyone that goes into social work has to have some of those written skills and be ready for that, because it's a key part of your daily workplace. We actually have staff that have to set aside a couple hours at a time to do paperwork every week. We're doing it on an ongoing basis as well, but they have reports and they have outcomes measures, and so you'll see blocks of their calendar that say paperwork time. So paperwork is probably one of the biggest complaints of social workers in the field, but that's because the documentation piece is so important. So looking at the way that writing is used, I'll touch upon this a little bit at the end. I'm really trying to focus on the case management piece, but if you are a writing major and not into the social work arena, you might still find employment doing things like grant writing or assisting with fundraising. So there's a lot of other ways that you can support a program using writing skills that aren't necessarily the social work component of it. So I'll get to that as well. But looking at the progress notes, I'm going to come back to the other side. The progress notes are used, it's a way to record program activity. It's a way to communicate the progress within the team. So I talked before about how we're going in a lot of different directions. And I might not see one of my colleagues for 3 days, but I know that they've been with a youth in between. So I'm going to check that file and say, okay, well, I know they went to go get that youth to take them to that job interview. Did they get the job? I'm not sure. So I'm going to check the progress notes to know what happened with that. Tracking outcomes of the service plan. That, when you look at the goal sheet, we use the goals for that, and then we use the progress notes for that as well. So we have the steps that say, okay, was this goal achieved? Did they decide they don't want to work on that goal anymore? So that's written down both in the goal plan, but then it should also be accompanied by a progress note. Because if all of a sudden I go back and look at the goal sheet and say, what happened? This says that they accomplished getting a job, but it's not written anywhere. I don't know where that job is. I don't know how they got it. Did they have an interview? Did they get hired by a friend? What's going on with that? That's really important. So I need to track how they achieved that goal. And then documenting concerns and action plans. That's a really important part of our process. When one of our staff members is with a youth, if a concern arises, maybe it's a medical concern or it's a housing concern, if that comes up, we have to share that with the colleagues. And they might come back and say, oh, this is going on with this youth. We need to work on this. But we also really need to document that as well. Because if something were to happen, legally might be an example. If we knew that something was going on and we didn't write it down anywhere and then didn't take action on it, our records can be subpoenaed. I've been to court on several occasions where they ask us to bring the file along, and we have to read out dates. Okay, this is what we did with this youth on a particular day. So it's really important that our records are accurate and that we're documenting the right things, that if a concern arises, that we're sharing that instead of just saying, oh yeah, I talked about it, I was worried about it, and I'm sure it's going to be fine. Providing accountability for the clients and the staff. That kind of goes in line with that at any time, knowing that our records could be reviewed by our supervisors, by the funders that fund us, and by a legal presence. That's really important. It holds us accountable for the quality of not just the paperwork, but the quality of the work. And then for the youth, it offers that accountability because sometimes, we can go back and track. This youth has been working on getting their GED, for example, and I've gone 17 times to pick them up for tutoring or to pick them up to take a test, and they don't show, or they blow me off, or they yelled at me, or they weren't there. By showing that in the documentation, I can look back with them the next time we meet for goals and say, what's going on? We're working harder than you are. This shows documentation of all the times that we've been there, what's happening. And sometimes it might mean they're going to process it with me and say, that's just not a goal I really want to work on. Okay, that's fine. But that can help us to get that conversation moving. Or they can say, I was there every time. I don't know what you're talking about. We can say, well, that's weird because 3 different people have gone out there and we have a record of it. So it can offer some accountability so that we have something to back ourselves up with as well. I'm going to go to a couple scenarios, and this includes some participation. So I want to process these a little bit to really get to what needs to exist in documentation. I took some basic scenarios. I was going to use some written work that we've actually utilized, but confidentiality reasons, and some of them just didn't get to some of the keys that I was looking for. So I crafted these based on scenarios that have happened and just did some basic examples. So the first one, these are two different versions of the same events. In the first one, we get a note that just says, staff picked the youth up, took them job hunting, youth applied at 5 places, they got an interview at 1 for next week, and they dropped off at home. The second one says, staff picked youth up from school to take job hunting. Youth wanted to apply at places close to 28th Street bus route, so they applied at Meijer, Aldi, Family Dollar, Wendy's, and McDonald's. Youth was invited to an interview at Meijer next Tuesday at 4. Staff made arrangements to pick him up from home and bring him to the interview. What are the key differences in the two scenarios? They both capture the same thing, that job hunting occurred with this youth. One's more descriptive. And what kinds of details do we have in the second one? Okay, what those 5 places were. The time of the interview. Anything else? Why they chose the places they did. Those are all good things, because if we look at that first note, going back to staff, let's say I take the youth out, I'm the one that writes that first note, it goes in the file, and then I'm out sick the following couple days. So then this youth calls and says, hey, I didn't go to my interview today because nobody took me. Okay, well, it wasn't documented. Maybe I would have made those arrangements still, but maybe I would have forgot because I was busy, I was sick, I wasn't feeling up to it. So it wasn't documented that needed to happen. So that helps to hold us accountable, and it really helps to get to some of those core things so that the next time, let's say they're still going job hunting a week from now. Okay, well, we're going to, instead of going out and saying, oh, I've got all these jobs on Alpine, well, they don't want to be on Alpine, they want to be on 28th Street. So don't waste your time trying to prep with that. You can be looking at maybe some other places for them. You can know what those motivations are. You can specifically give a follow-up phone call while I'm sick and say, hey, have you heard back from any of these other places? And it helps to show the youth that we care and that we communicate. You say, hey, I heard that Meijer's hiring, and they're like, yeah, I have an interview there. And you're like, don't you guys talk? Don't you guys listen to what we're doing? So it really helps to organize things, and then it just shows some of that accountability instead of just being like, yeah, they got some applications in, I don't know what's going to happen with that. You can follow up specifically, you can show that you have some outcomes and the youth has outcomes. And then the next time you do that goal review, you can check off and say, okay, we did the things that we said we were going to do. So that's one example. Scenario 2, and I have 2 pages for that one. I'm going to swear, sorry. While staff was driving youth home from group, youth started talking about her boyfriend. She shared an incident where they argued about the dishes. She said, I told him since I'm working and going to school, he needs to do the chores at home. Then he called me a bitch. I told him I wasn't sure I wanted to live with him anymore, but I really can't pay the rent without him, and I love him, and I didn't mean it anyway. Staff told her we should meet to discuss this. She'll let us know. So that's the first one. Somebody just writes up that conversation. That's our first note. Second one. While staff was driving youth home from group, youth shared about some struggles she's having with her boyfriend in regards to chores and housing expectations. She expressed frustration and a desire to work things out. Staff suggested that they schedule a cohabitation meeting. Staff will call to follow up next Monday. What are some differences in those examples? Back to. Same incident. Mm-hmm.
The first one kind of put in some details that didn't really need to be put there.
Okay.
Their conversation, it was personal.
Okay. What's different about the second one? Okay, a little bit more of a summary. So that first scenario that we were looking at, we wanted more details. So that's important. We want details, but we want to make sure that they're the right details and that they're applicable. This second one, it isn't maybe applicable to include all of that. It could give some judgmental tone to it. It's not a bad thing to quote. We do quote a lot. Sometimes we need that for some of those specific examples. But we also want to make sure that the details that we're giving are focused and that they're focused on the goals. So when we look at this, what this is really saying is, okay, well, maybe we need to help them work some of this out so that their housing is intact. So we're kind of going back to that housing goal. In the second one, this meeting that's referenced is called cohabitation meeting. We have that with youth who are going to be living with a partner or a friend or even a roommate that's a stranger. We've set that up so that we can go over things like chore schedules and how the rent's going to be paid. It's one of the things that we offer that sometimes helps to ease some of the issues that might arise. So maybe in this scenario, the same thing was suggested, but it wasn't written down that way. So we say, okay, we're going to do that. It also gives a measurable goal. So instead of just saying, you know what, the youth's going to call if they decide they want that, it gives something specific for the action step for staff. So we didn't just notice that this problem is going on or we're observing that something's building up. We actually suggested a solution in the cohabitation meeting, and we gave ourselves as staff an action, a follow-up. And by having it in writing, it's now accountable because my supervisor is going to look at that, and when we do our report or do our next supervision review, they're going to say, okay, you were supposed to follow up on Monday. Did that happen? Oh, no, maybe it didn't, and now I'm going to get on it. Or, yeah, I did, and they went ahead and scheduled for next Friday. But being really busy, this kind of framing, it seems so silly. It's just a difference in writing, but it's going to hold us accountable. If she'd read that first note, she might have said, oh, okay, I guess she'll call and we'll see. Maybe she would have followed up and said, well, when is she going to call? Or what are you going to do about it? By this, we're preventing that. We're thinking ahead and being proactive with it and saying, I know my supervisor's going to ask me, what did I do about it? So why not just deal with that from the start? So the written word can really help to offer some of that accountability. Scenario 3. Staff went to pick youth up to take youth to their scheduled GED test. Youth wasn't ready. Staff waited a long time and then informed the youth we needed to go. Youth refused, gave lots of excuses for not going. Staff told youth to call when they were ready to try again. Second one, staff went to pick youth to take them to their scheduled GED test. Same first line. When youth came to the door, they weren't yet dressed. Staff informed them we needed to arrive by 8:30 to take the test. Staff waited 10 minutes, then checked in with youth, letting them know this was the deadline. Youth then shared that they hadn't studied, didn't want to take the bus home in the rain. Staff told youth to call when they were ready to try again. What are the differences here? Two of the lines, the opening line and the closing line, are exactly the same. What's the difference between the two? There's some numbers in there. What do the numbers mean? More detail. Maybe offers some of those specifics. So a little bit like what we talked about in the first scenario, that it offers some more details. One of the reasons I'd also include this is, let's say, this is maybe kind of some of that accountability or covering your butt. I didn't put that in any of our writing, but let's say the youth calls and says, well, hey, yeah, I'm calling for a supervisor because Janelle came to pick me up, and then she wouldn't wait long enough, and now I didn't get to take my GED test, so that's her fault. Okay, well, when I look at it detailed, my supervisor in the second one would be able to say, okay, well, she waited 10 minutes. She told you exactly the deadline, that if you didn't get there, you weren't even allowed to take the test. She checked in with you, and then these are the things you said to her. In that first scenario, it just says, oh, they weren't ready. We waited a long time, but who knows what that long time was. And then they gave excuses, but they didn't even share what the excuses were. Yep, Marcelata?
I was going to add that there is detail, but there's two different accountability, like observation.
Mm-hmm.
To see the student and not be stressed. So
Mm-hmm.
observation and then communication to support both of those.
Mm-hmm. And it's not really, in this case, I'm not trying to put the blame on the youth, but I'm actually trying to show that in the second scenario, we could be a little bit more productive, even though they didn't meet their goal that day. By looking at this, we can look and say, okay, so first off, it sounds like maybe you weren't ready. Was it the time of day? What's going on with that? You could also say, it looks like you had a couple of reasons. And instead of judging and saying they're just excuses, you can say, here's some legitimate reasons that they didn't want to take it. One, they hadn't studied. Okay, what do we need to do about that then? Instead of just saying, call me when you're ready, do you need to help get scheduled with our tutor? Do you need to get better sleep? What is it? Do you want to just call us once you feel you have studied enough? It puts it back on them to make the decision instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to wait till my case manager calls me again and reschedule that. Not wanting to take the bus home in the rain. Maybe that is just an excuse, but maybe it's something we can help with. Okay, what if we give you an umbrella? What if we give you a ride both ways? Here's some different things that we can do to take away that barrier. You might then come up with other excuses. Maybe you just didn't want to take it today, and that's fine. But if those are the legitimate reasons, and we just help to address those barriers, for some youth, they might say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that now. I just didn't even think that you could offer that. So it really helps to, it's the same scenario, but it helps to give those details for the accountability, for processing the next steps, really identifying those next action steps. Okay, scenario 4, this is the last one. So youth attended a housing group today, but was lazy and didn't participate. I suspect she might have been high like she used to be when she first came in the program. She left before I could confront her. Second one, youth attended housing group today. She did not participate in discussion, had her head down several times. Staff observed the youth's eyes were bloodshot, but didn't observe any scent of marijuana. Youth left immediately after group, so staff was unable to discuss concerns or address why she wasn't more engaged. What's the difference here? Okay. And what leads you to believe that?
Just because they're kind of like, well, she was high like she used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, it gave reasons why she thought she was high
Mm-hmm.
and how she planned on confronting that.
Mm-hmm. And that's really important. I've mentioned a couple times that one of the organizations or agencies that might call our records into question or review our records are those legal records. So maybe I would be called to court. It could be a custody hearing over someone's child. So if they were to see that first one, they might look at it and be like, okay, so she's coming to group high. That's not a good pattern. In the second one, maybe we're still having some of these same concerns, but it's not as judgmental. It's just giving some factual statements. It could be that her eyes were bloodshot because she was tired. Maybe she was up all night studying, and that could be the reason. By showing that instead of just saying, I think she was high, now I have, I didn't smell any marijuana, so there's not really a reason or a proof behind that. There's just some suspicions. And it does give then that follow-up, and that the follow-up is more about concerns about the engagement versus the judgment. The other piece is the I language. It's the first time in the scenarios that I use that, but we really use the third person a lot in our case management and our documentation. The I language is actually reserved for the clients. So if the youth is writing up their goal plan, then they would use the I language to say, I'm going to do this, my case manager is going to do this. That's a little bit about empowerment, but it's also about who the focus should be on. So in that first one, it is judgment. It's saying, I'm thinking this, or I just believe this as an individual, versus the term staff, or this staff, or sometimes we'll use our initials. But that's really the process that we use when we're documenting, is that we speak of ourselves in third person. We do all have to sign all of our notes, so there's accountability to the individual staff person. We sign every note that we do. We sign every goal plan, anyone that we're communicating with, so it can be tracked back to us. But staff is sort of more of a generic whole, that we should all be on the same page, versus one person thinks she was high, one person thinks she was tired, one person thinks this. It's here are some observations, this is what we see, and then maybe we start to see a pattern. Okay, they came to group the next time and this was happening. Or we confronted and this was the reasoning they gave. And at least we can have that process, whether it's the truth or not. We can say we had this discussion and then this is what came out of it, and we documented that. And then if a record is ever pulled, we can say, well, we tried to do our best about that. I have a scenario that happened one of the times that I was called to court. It was not my client. It was a case manager who had already left the agency, but they subpoenaed me with the file and just asked me to read parts of the file. And it wasn't actually even, the documentation was fine, but I remember the prosecution team that was trying to take this woman's children away, she was saying, well, you knew that she didn't have a job, but then you're documenting that her child has all these nice clothes and that she has a place to live. Didn't you know that the boyfriend was dealing drugs out of the home and that's how they paid for everything? And I said, well, all I can rely on is this documentation. I was not the case manager. I didn't know what was going on. Here are the things we observed. When we did goals, she shared that her partner was providing for her child in this way. And that's all it said. So it was kind of trying to catch us a bit like, so you sanction drug use or drug dealing as a way to provide for your children? No, we did not sanction that. But that was the kind of thing that they hold you accountable to. So in a case like this, they might say, okay, well, you let her come to group high all the time. What's going on with that? You were sanctioning that. And we would say, well, actually, no, we weren't positive that this would happen. This is why we didn't confront it in this case, and this is why we're going to follow up on it. So in a case like that, something very little could be really important. I mean, this was years later, and our staff member wasn't there anymore. I hardly even knew that youth, and I had to be on the stand and testify using our written documentation. So that's how important it can be. And just so you know, too, when I talk about tutors or interns, we review all of these things because our interns and our tutors have to do the same documentation, the same paperwork, they sign off on it, and it goes into their client file. The supervisor has to sign off on it as well, and sometimes they do rewrites a bit more, so they might turn in something like the first one, and we'd say, you know what, we need to change this. So there is ways that we can edit it. It's something that's reviewed. But even our students and our volunteers are held to that same standard. So that's how important it is that we review that documentation to make sure that it's accurate and that it's presenting our program in the right way and that we're really tracking the work that we're doing. So that talks about the scenarios. This kind of just gives us a summary of some of the standards, and there are things that you guys mentioned as we went through them, that it is detailed yet focused, identifies next steps, and is objective, as well as professional language and tone. And with that final piece, I would say one of the surprising things, spelling isn't necessarily the most important thing when we talk about writing. A lot of our documentation is electronic anyway, so we've got spell check and things like that. But I would say your tone and the language and the perspective that you're taking is going to be more important. If we notice a spelling error, we're obviously going to correct it. But when we talk about really what the core is in the writing, how are you communicating it? And that's what we really focus on. So there's a checks and balances process. The supervisor is going to review it. People have to initial off on it. We do internal audits. So when I talked about the audit where a licensor is going to review our files, we do that on an internal basis first, check through them all, say, oh, are there any red flags? Are there any missing documentation? That's a really big thing that, we do get busy. Maybe somebody forgets to write a note. So you might look in a file when you're doing an audit and see that first one where they went job hunting. And then the next note says, oh, she got fired from her job. And you're like, wait a minute, we just went job hunting. How did we even know they got a job? So that would be something that might come up in an audit, and we would then follow up with the staff and say, okay, when did we get a job? When did we know? Maybe it was just a voicemail that somebody left. Hey, I got this job. We have to write down the voicemail. We write down every call, every attempt to call, any contact at all that comes in, a voicemail that we leave, a voicemail that they leave. If they stop by the office to pick up a bus ticket, we have to track any kind of interaction that we have with the youth. And then coordination of care. Now, coordination of care is a little bit different. It's similar as far as the guidelines go to the type of tracking that we do. We should be objective, we should document, be detailed, be focused. But coordination of care is when we're working with other agencies or other individuals. So this would be a note that I would write if I was talking to a landlord, if I was talking to a parent of a youth, could be another community organization that they're trying to get resources from. It might be a court agency or a police officer or protective services. I put the asterisk there that we must have documented consent when speaking on behalf of youth. So that's something anybody that we talk to about the youth with, we have to have written consent from that youth. If they're 18 or over. If they're under 18, we actually have to have written consent from the parent as well. So I wouldn't be talking to anybody unless I already have their consent. with the exception of the police, protective services, or somebody with a warrant that comes in. Those, if they have a warrant or if they're doing a protective services case, then we can just talk to them. But otherwise, we have to have their consent, and then we document that the same way we would document any other contact. So we're going to track youth's progress with other community organizations, excuse me, or other community organizations. I hope this doesn't get really loud with the mic. So that would be maybe they're working on their GED with an outside agency. They're taking classes, they're going in, and then we're kind of doing some work with them too. And we say, okay, well, once you get your GED, you can start applying for this type of job. How far are you on there? Well, I don't know. I've taken a couple tests. I don't know my scores. Okay, if it's okay with you, let's fill out a form and then I'll call on your behalf. So a lot of times we're doing advocacy type of work where we're really trying to help a youth receive services or find out the kind of services that they have. So documenting those advocacy efforts and then identifying action steps. Some of the youth we work with have really high mental health needs or medical needs, and they might need extra support. We had somebody who really needed help with accessing a hearing aid because they were hard of hearing. And they advocated as much as they could on their own behalf, but just weren't getting anywhere. And honestly, once we started having conversations with the people they were working with, we weren't getting anywhere either. But we were able to document that and keep going above the head of the person that we talked to until we were able to have some action. So that was really important for us to follow those same steps and be really detailed. Okay, I called this number at this time on this date. I was told to talk to this person. I followed up with this person. And that, usually the coordination of care is where we're more likely to use quotes. So they might say something like, oh no, I told her she's not going to get this if she doesn't do this. Or if she calls back by Monday, we're going to get it. Okay, we're writing this down. She said on this date, if we call back by Monday, she's going to get this. Then I go to Monday and I say, okay, we're calling back. Okay, well, I have it written that you told me this. So that's going to be really important with the coordination of care, tracking, documenting. And I mentioned email before. We really don't do much email outside of the agency, but we're hoping to figure that out soon, all the legal issues and the confidentiality, because I actually really like email for use with coordination of care. It's a much easier way to track things. Sometimes we do use it if we don't mention the client's name. We might refer to a client number. And when we get an email or we send an email, we really like that because you can print that out. You can show the exact date. You can show a stream of conversation. When you have a phone conversation, even when you document it really well, it could come back where they're like, well, did they really say that? Or did you just write it that way? Or did you take it the wrong way? With an email, you can look through and say, okay, they sent this to me at this time. They told me this. I followed up this way. I responded this way. So we're hoping that some of that gets figured out, but we really like to have email conversations with coordination of care, and we print those out, the whole conversation, and then we'll put it in there. So that's something there. But when we do get a voicemail or if it's just a phone conversation, we try to track it as closely as possible as we can when it's a coordination of care source. Any questions about that? All right. Looking at the discharge summary. The discharge summary is going to differ with different youth based on the reasons for closure. So a youth might successfully close from our program because they have obtained safe and stable housing. Maybe they have found a full-time job and they just don't have time to participate in the program anymore and they don't feel they need it. Sometimes they'll move out of the area. They'll go away to school or they'll find housing with a family member that lives out of town. Those are all successful reasons for closure. There's other times when they just lose contact with us. They don't follow up with us, but we try to touch base with them. In a case like that, documentation again is really important. We're going to look back and say, okay, well, we haven't had contact for over a month now. Then we send a letter and we keep a copy of that letter and it says, we really need you to contact us by this date. And then we close from the program. A youth can open up again if they're under 21, but it's especially important if they're over 21, they can't open up again in our services. So the documentation of the discharge process is really important there. We don't want them to lose out on the chance to work with us. So we really try all different means. We'll send a letter, we'll stop by their last known workplace, their last known housing. We write down where we went. We if we have an email address, we might do an email. Sometimes they really just don't want to work with us anymore. Maybe they just feel they don't need us, or they decided they didn't like it, or they found what they needed elsewhere, and that's completely fine. It's a voluntary program. But like I said, we don't want them to lose the opportunity. So especially in those cases where they're already 21, we will really make an effort and track that, and then we do a discharge summary of what that process was like, where they were at when they closed. In a case where it's successful, we actually have a final goal sheet that we did that looks like that plan. Okay, what are your action steps? What do you feel your successes were? What are the next steps that you want to work on? So now you've got your GED. Do you want to look on to furthering your education? Or are you looking at applying for new kinds of jobs now? What are the goals that you still have? Because you're always going to have goals. And we really hope that our program is overall an independent living program, that we're teaching skills for them to take with them. Maybe they won't write up a goal sheet every month for themselves, but that they'll know that process, that the next time they have something they want to work toward, that they're at least going to think through that. Okay, well, I can't do this before I do this. Or, ooh, I'm really overwhelmed by this situation. How do I break that down? So that's one of the ways that will really help to process through, even when it's a successful closure. So the discharge summary hits those stakeholders again. When we talk about the youth as a stakeholder, it gives us a chance to celebrate the accomplishments with youth, where we say, here's what you did do. You were in the program for a year, you were in the program for 2 years, and this is what you accomplished. Providing a clear closure to the youth, especially in a case, so they're actually only able to work with us for up to 21 months. So if it's a successful closure and it's the 21 months is up, sometimes they don't want to close with us, and that's flattering. They love working with us. That's great, but we need to be really clear about that closure. So having it in writing helps with that. We put it right out there and say, well, this is what it means. You can't receive these services anymore, but here are the services that you can receive. You can follow up with us and do phone calls, process things on the phone. You can still come to our life skills groups or access our tutoring services, but you can't access the case management services. So it really helps us to be very clear about what those expectations are. They sign off on it, so then we have it in written form. So if they ever complain, like, oh, I didn't get the services I wanted, well, we went through that and you didn't mention that you needed those things still. So we help to develop the aftercare plan, what that would look like. Are there other resources in the community now that they're older that they could access, or now that they're working on a different type of goal that might be able to help them? And then tracking those program outcomes, that's really hitting at those funding sources. We obviously want our youth to succeed, but we need to capture both the numbers, how many complete their GED, how many gain employment, how many move into an apartment, and we also need to capture some of those stories. So that's what the second part is sharing program successes with community stakeholders. So outside of just the number of youth we're helping, we work with some of our youth to then develop their stories and share their stories. They sometimes come with us on community outreach activities. Other times maybe they write up a thank you note to us unsolicited. And when we get it, we might contact them and say, we'd really like to share this with this funding source, or we'd really like to put this in our newsletter and withhold your name, but share that you helped our program to succeed. I'm not going into detail too much on this part because I know Stephen DiPolo he's also presenting at the conference, and he really is talking about fundraising, both in grant writing and doing development work, seeking donors, and that's where a lot of that really applies. So I do some basic writing. I might do a mini grant application myself. I wrote to the Civic Theater to ask for tickets, and that was a successful letter, and I think it was because we focused on the partnerships we have, the collaborations, the success stories, versus just saying, hey, can we have tickets to this? We said why we thought cultural exposure was important to the youth, how many youth we would be taking, a guarantee that our staff would help them get there, so we knew the tickets would be used. So little things like that are examples of how we might be connecting with the community in a broader sense using our written skills. But like I said, I think he's exploring that probably in more detail and more efficiently than I would. But that discharge summary, it is actually a written document very similar to the intake summary, that integrated assessment, where we're going over all the different aspects of the program, what they worked on, kind of a summary of all the case notes that, okay, we did this much job hunting, this was successful, this wasn't. So it helps to capture all those things for all of us. And we would do that whether they are involved in the closure or if it's an unexpected closure when the client just doesn't continue contact. But that helps us to provide closure for the youth and for ourselves. Oh, excuse me. Any questions about that process? Okay. Then that actually ends the piece that I was planning to talk to you about the case file in general. But do you have any questions about other aspects that writing is utilized in the social work field or in various positions? Or how about you, Marceletta? Anything else you'd like me to cover?
I just have a question.
Sure.
There's so many different, at least 3-4 different classes in here.
Yes.
So do you see anything that overlaps from what you're learning about writing and what she's presented about how writing is shaped and formed in social work? I like to ask this one.
No, it's a good question. One of the interesting things I guess I could share, I actually was an English major in college, and then I was an English major my first 3 years, and then I'd already completed all my English classes. I was planning to be a secondary high school teacher, and then I did I think it was for a children's lit class, something along those lines. I did a placement at St. John's Home where I tutored in writing. And I really liked the placement, and they offered me a position. And I said, okay, I'm going into my senior year. I worked there over the summer. I loved it so much that I actually changed. I dropped my student teaching and picked up a bunch of social work classes, and then I graduated with a dual major. But I decided to go the social work route instead of the English route. So I don't use the literature, the grammar aspects as much as I would have had I been a high school English teacher, but I definitely use the writing in the day-to-day, how to communicate, how to get a point across, the power of words. When we looked at those scenarios, I think that maybe most closely illustrates the importance of that difference, that it's really just a change of words sometimes, and it could be the difference between somebody going to jail and somebody being free. It could be the difference between a youth remembering to pick them up and them being forgotten. So that communication, the way that the written language is used in day-to-day work, I definitely see it evident. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, you might not be going into social work. You might change your mind a year left of your program. But even if you're not going into the social work field, you're going to be able to use these skills in whatever field you go in, or you might find that there's some way that you're going to support the program. And I talked about that a little bit at the beginning, that we have people that have written skill or have a writing background that do our grant writing for us. They don't do any interaction with our kids at all, but they're helping the kids because they're helping to get that funding. We have other people that work in donor relations, and so a well-crafted thank you card might be the reason that an organization keeps coming back and donating to us. Or a well-crafted proposal letter might be the reason that somebody chooses to give us money versus somebody else. So those written skills really are key, and they can benefit people in a way even when you're not doing direct service. You can be using those skills to help. Or if you're looking, you might find this as you progress in your programs, that sometimes you're charged with doing some community outreach or some service learning work. You can use some of the skills that you have to help an organization. So maybe you come with a proposal and say, I'm not planning to be a social worker, but I want to help a service organization. What can I do? Can I write letters? Can I help rewrite your brochure so it's more effective? So there could be ways that you're putting your skills to use to help the community in that way as well. Any other questions or thoughts? I know it's a little early, but nobody ever seems to mind that the last session, so you can have time to fill out your evals.